Hello, it's Michael Yan here. It's 0235 on 26 March 2020, 0235 in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which makes it about 3:35 p.m. in Washington, D.C. or New York City. I'll be on the John Batchelor Show in about another 7 hours. I should be in bed right now, actually, to be prepared for that. It'll be at 21:45 New York time. I believe he's in New York. Actually, I'll be on there with Gordon Chang, and then afterwards, I'm going to have Maura Moynihan. She's going to come on my podcast here. You know, I've introduced Maura many times, or maybe you've seen her on TV many times. She's a friend of mine. She's incredibly intelligent, and she was ready to go on tonight, but she was she was out and about somewhere, and I said, let's don't do it on just on your phone. Let's wait until you get to somewhere quiet because we want really quality Maura time when we get her attention because she'll answer questions. She is super smart, super experienced. She grew up part of her life in India because her father was the ambassador to India. He was Senator Moynihan, actually, super famous senator. He was good at crossing the aisles on the Republican Democrat thing. He was very, actually, quite well respected. Anyway, so we are like, battle buddies when it comes to destroying CCP. So, we're always, communicating on that. So Maura's going to be on tomorrow. So be ready. That would be maybe 10 hours from now, something like that. I got to get some sleep, and then I'll do the John Batchelor Show with Gordon Chang, and then I'll call Maura. But let's get into action right now and think of your questions for Maura. She's super smart, so really think them through, and she'll answer your question in long form too. She won't just if you want a long answer, she'll give you one, and be prepared to take notes. All right, let's go. Hey everybody, I see people in New York and Florida and Georgia, and so many places here. California and Kansas. All right. Super bad echo. Uh-oh. That's not good. How about now? Is there echo now? Uh-oh. That's terrible. Uh-oh. I hope there's no echo. Alrighty. Vincent saying America is effed. Yeah. Let's put it like this. We're about to take some serious casualties. And but we're gonna make it through. We're definitely gonna make it through. Hello in Brazil, in Canada, BC. No echo. Good. That's good to know. So let's get started. Listen, Vincent just said America is effed. We're going to take some serious casualties. Let's be straight about it. This idea from President Trump that we're going to be back, everybody's going to be in churches for Easter, that's utterly ridiculous. Some people give him a pass because they go, well, he's just trying to lift up spirits. What the hell? I don't need him lifting up my spirit. We need the truth, and we're not going to get it from him. As you know, people that have followed my work for years know that I have never been Mr. Trump derangement syndrome, and often I've been defending, his policies on China and other things. So it's not like that at all. But let's call this ball where it lands. Same with Obama and same with Bush before, right? Let's call the ball where it lands. And where the ball lands is Trump has massively screwed this up, and he's lying, and he's setting a terrible example, and so is his Surgeon General Jerome Adams. But we'll get to that. Now keep in mind, people who followed my work for years know that I'm not Mr. Panic person, right? I'm not, and I won't defend incompetence like General McChrystal and those sorts of things in the Afghan war. You've never seen me get riled up really with something, when people say, don't panic. Well, I'm not panicking. I mean, you've seen me in years of combat, Iraq, Afghanistan, Thailand, other places. And you've seen videos with me in combat. I'm perfectly fine. I'm like, what's for lunch? And bullets are snapping by. Literally, you can see it. It's like I'm quite calm in the face of, getting killed. It's no problem. I mean, I don't want to. I like to live. But here's the point. The point is I'm not panicking. This is very serious. Look at the fact pattern. I didn't go to the Iraq war until 2004. It had started in arguably 2003, but you might say 2001 with 9/11. And the Afghan war, I didn't go until 2006. So I didn't just jump on these things and jump into them, right? But when I did get into them, I did more combat than than any correspondent out there. I don't know anybody that comes close. Actual real combat. And so, and I stayed on it, and I'll go back again. That's not the point. The point is, you've not seen me get riled up about global warming, Y2K or any of that stuff. Global warming, by the way, I'm not saying that there's not something there. Actually, I think there probably is. But you've not seen me get all riled up about it and say America should give away all of our wealth, because there's a cult going on around that. And it's quite clear. And so it's very difficult to get any truth out of there because there's trillions of dollars at stake, right? So I just kind of, anyway, but you haven't seen me get all riled up about that or really much of anything except for CCP, which I'm dead set on destroying, Chinese Communist Party. That's why I jumped into Hong Kong last June when I saw what was going on. I went there and finally they kicked me out, right? They kicked me out on February 5th when I was trying to return. But keeping in mind, this virus broke out, patient 0 may have been November 17th, and I started talking about it sometime in early January, mid-January, but certainly there was at least one post that I put in writing on my Facebook. I thought it was more, on 22nd of January, that this coronavirus is on the long march, right? And so I published that earlier. So the point is I was tracking on this earlier, and it's very important because and then I changed everything I was doing and focused on this virus. Now, I see all these reports recently that Bill Gates warned about this in 2015. He did. And I think I published that maybe back then. I'm not sure. If I did, it's out there somewhere. Because I thought he was dead on. I know a lot of people don't like Bill Gates, but when it came to the pandemic issues, I think he's dead on. But Bill Gates also did not introduce this thing. Keep in mind, I've been reading about this stuff since I was a kid. A potential massive pandemic. It's always been a national security issue. It's always, and people were talking about this before any of our grandparents were born. If you're 85 years old and you're watching this, people were talking about this before your great-grandparents were born. So it's like, this is old stuff. I mean, it's just coming, it's happening. So when it did come to roost, I said, oh, that's potentially earth-shattering, but we are going to get through it. We're definitely going to get through it. But we're going to take a lot of casualties. Now, I want to say very clearly before I soon go to bed, I'll take a few questions, but stock up. Make sure you've got at least 4 months supply of food, water, and pharmaceuticals if you need any, or anything else that you may need for that length of time. You may not need it. You may need a lot more. We don't know. But I can tell you, 2 weeks supply is like crazily dangerously low. You may not need it at all, but that's actually crazily dangerously low during any time. But in any case, I would have at least 4 months. For instance, Bill Gates, he was out there saying it today or yesterday. That you need to be able to be ready to hunker down for maybe 10 weeks, right? I think it could be a little longer. It depends. Okay, he's talking about hunkering down from the virus. The virus is one thing, and he's highly cognizant of also the supply chain issues, which he talked about very clearly in his TED Talks in 2015, and he still talks about. But keep in mind, people were talking about supply. Bill Gates didn't just think all this up. He just put more sophisticated technology and computer modeling and that sort of thing behind it. And his big brain, he put that behind it. But people have been talking about this and experienced it many times through the years. And so the point is it is quite serious. You got the virus, and then you got supply chain issues. We got the economy everybody knows about. We see that package that may go through, and Americans will get a little money in their pocket and that sort of thing. Excuse me, but I'm not coughing. I'm not drinking coffee either. It's too late for that. The stimulus for our economy and that sort of thing obviously is important, but the idea that you're going to be able to safely go out before Easter is utterly ridiculous. And if President Trump is trying to make people feel better with that, I'm going to have to call bullshit on him, because that's bullshit by any stretch of the imagination. And when he's saying these things and people are just accepting it like, oh, well, it's President Trump, he said it. Listen, he's said, he's lifting people's spirits. To hell with him. He's lifting people's spirits, but they're not preparing because when he says things like this, when he says, "Oh, it's just the flu" or whatever, compared it to the flu, and it'll maybe just magically go away. What did he say? I saw that video. It's not just the flu. He didn't say it just like that, and it's not just going to magically disappear. And now he told millions of people that. So millions of people are like, well, he said it's okay. And so that millions of people probably have not prepared due to things like that he has said and the modeling that he's done, which are incorrect. If churches are packed with people on Easter Sunday on April 12th, as he's indicated, in the last 24 hours, that's like epic. I mean, that's like epic stupidity that people will be writing about for centuries. It'll be like, and then that president they had at the time, whatever his name was, he told everybody to go to church. That's probably how it'll get translated. And then a million Christians died. And then, and then the Christian coalition and all that in the United States sort of fell apart after that because everybody lost faith, because everybody went to church and, so many people died. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the sort of, imagine how this plays out historically, if everybody goes, yeah, Trump's right. Well, I can tell you one thing, if hundreds of thousands of Christians were to die from that, I don't think they would vote for him come November. So in any case, Barbara's saying, Trump didn't say what I'm saying about Easter. I saw what he said. And he didn't say exactly that, but you can easily see it. And he's clearly indicating that he would like to see churches packed by Easter. So, I mean, you can look up and see exactly what he said, and I'm not going to niggle on that stuff. But the bottom line is that was the takeaway. The takeaway was, hey, things could be good to go by Easter, and they're not going to be, period. They're not even going to be close to being good to go. They're not even going to be peaking out, possibly. They might not even be peaked out in New York yet. And even when they peak out, you still got to come down from the peak. And we're just going up right now. I mean, it's going to be, the governor of New York, Cuomo, is now saying, they need possibly 150,000 beds, which is, I think where they start with 90, and he's tried to plus it up to 120, I believe. I'm not sure if my numbers are right. I mean, we're going to make it through, but you have to be cognizant that, first of all, Trump is a gushing well of false information and false hope. And he's setting expectations that if people heed those, they will not be prepared psychologically or physically with enough food and that sort of thing if things go poorly. And as Bill Gates warned in 2015 and continues to warn now, and people have warned since before any of us were born, these sorts of things typically lead to famines. That's why I said in January, we could see famines and wars come out of this. And actually, I think that we will. I don't know if there'll be famines in the United States. I don't know. Probably not. Could be. But depends on if something else comes along with it, like grid goes out, that sort of thing. Well, yeah, then possibly, actually. And so, I mean, the sky's the limit. And so definitely make sure that you continue to stock up. And if you're depending on President Trump for accurate information, well, God bless you. So now a few other things to talk. I mean, we're going to make it through. It's not like this is going to be the end of the world. I mean, my family came over from, I've mentioned this several times, my eastern side of my mother's side, my grandmother and grandfather got on a boat called the Sea Venture in 1609, right? And they were sailing over to Jamestown, 1609. That's long before the Pilgrims, right? And the Puritans. It was before all that. They were going to Jamestown to colonize, right? Got hit with a hurricane or something and landed on Bermuda and were stuck there for like 10 months, right? And we know that because there was an author that was on the Sea Venture. The name of the boat was the Sea Venture. So they got shipwrecked, and this author was there because he was hired to do basically propaganda to get more people to go to Jamestown, right, for the Virginia Company, right? And so anyway, my uncle was born there, and they named him after Bermuda. So his name was Bermudez. And his godfather was a man named John Rolfe. And John Rolfe married Pocahontas in 1614, right? Because anyway, they got shipwrecked in 1609. They were shipwrecked there for like 10 months. There was no Indians on Bermuda. They had 2 Indians because they brought the Indians over to England to show everybody how friendly they were. They were like, it was like a hostage thing, really. I mean, they were, hey, look, the Indians are friendly, and that's what they would do in the old days to make it look like the Indians are friendly. They would take some Indians over and show them around. Look, they're not harmful. And anyway, so they had a couple of Indians with them that got shipwrecked with them, and then they built those 2 other ships, and they showed up to Jamestown, and they were starving to death. In fact, they were doing cannibalism. Not my family, because they had plenty of food on Bermuda. And so actually it was the boat, the Sea Venture that my family was on that seems to have saved the people at Jamestown. Bottom line is, we come from that sort of people. We come from special people that do very special things. That was the start of America, more or less, and it just was hardship all the way up until just recent generations, and there's still a lot of hardship. So, I mean, we're going to make it. I'm not even worried about that. The economy is clearly going to take a huge hit, and we're going to take a lot of casualties, but we're going to make it. And remember, the president is not the one shutting things down, and he doesn't have the power to shut everything down. The governors do. He shut down flights and that sort of thing. The governors and local officials can, like your state governor can do a lot of things. He can pull out the National Guard, or she, if there's any female, I don't know. But anyway, the bottom line is, all this shutdown that's happening is not from President Trump. That's from, except for the flights and maybe a few other little things. But the real shutdown is coming from at state level and lower, right? Now, we have the power. The ultimate power is with us. Like, if you want to stay shut down for 6 months and you've got or 2 years, if you got the food to do it, you can stay shut down. So your fate is not in his or anybody else's hands. If you don't want to go out and face this virus, if you have the supplies, you can just do it. I mean, as long as I'm here and we got electricity and Facebook and and YouTube and all that's going, then we can chat online and share information. You don't have to go out and face anything. So in other words, he doesn't even have the power to crank it back up. He doesn't, because he didn't shut it down. This is coming at state and lower level and personal level. There's people that just hold up without being told. I was talking with a friend yesterday, and he left. He stopped working early February, and he's been more or less holed up ever since, because he realized how dangerous it is too. There you go. It's the power is largely in not in everybody's. I mean, if you work for somebody like Boeing, if the factory's shut down, obviously you can't just go make airplanes on your own. Maybe paper airplanes or something. But anyway, I tell you, the bottom line is, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. We're going to take a boatload of casualties. Nobody knows how many. But whether or not we are casualties, most of that depends on us as individuals. If you're not out, in bars, drunk, spitting each other's face all night, or getting into big crowds, if you're not out, doing things that are really dangerous, and you just isolate yourself, your chances are really super high that you're going to make it through, no problem. So there you go. Let's try to take a few questions, and I'm going to go to bed. The CCP stopped. Yeah, CCP is completely unreliable. Joe Thorpe, I guess you're in Hawaii, Joe. I agree with you on Trump. He does not have the power to change the economy. He doesn't have the power to shut everything down, really. And he doesn't have the power to start everything up. He doesn't have the power to make you leave your home. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that power. He can, obviously he has huge power. He's the president of the United States, but he doesn't have ultimate power. He doesn't have godlike powers. And the governors have a lot of state power, and cities can have power there, and counties and parishes and all that. And so, Okay, Jane Mulligan Bookless, my friend. Idaho State is shut down with the National Guard helping the police. LOL. I mean, there you go. I mean, that's not President Trump. That's your governor. You know what I mean? If your governor wants to pull out the National Guard and say these streets are closed, then those streets are closed. And if the governor says, hey, okay, everything's open now, everybody go back to work, you can say, not me. This isn't finished yet. I'm going to continue to plant tomatoes. So the power ultimately is in your hands. The power ultimately, if you've got enough food and water and that sort of thing, it's all down to you. There you go. Governor of Georgia. I don't know. What about martial law, Mike Morgan? I don't know if you're talking to me directly. I think we've all heard of martial law. Yeah. But martial law, the president does. Yeah, the president can certainly pull out the military and shut things down, but he hasn't shut anything down but except flights, maybe a few other minor things. All these shutdowns that you see across the country, that's not from President Trump. Name me one thing that he shut down. He didn't even shut down the airlines. He didn't shut them down. He just made them stop flying from parts of China to begin with, and finally China, and then he shut down parts of Europe, or Italy, and then Europe, and then finally UK, but still flights are still coming into the United States and that sort of thing. So no, I mean he doesn't have the power to tell everybody to stay. He can tell everybody anything they want, but we got 330 million Americans, and a lot of us are. We got a mind of our own. Now I'll stay indoors because it makes sense, unless I'm doing war correspondent stuff, in which case I won't pay attention to him because I don't take orders from President Trump. I mean, he can send the army after me, and then I'll have to run away out in the woods, or they might throw me in jail if they catch me. But I don't take orders from President Trump. I'm not a soldier, not his sort anyway. Let's see. Yeah, CCP is. They're just, there's nothing trustworthy about them. Randy Brunette, can they confiscate firearms during martial law? I don't know what the constitutionality of that is, but I'm going to guess wildly no, because I'm going to guess like wildly no. And the bottom line is if Americans don't give up their weapons, I mean, that's it. If enough Americans do not want to give up their weapons, those weapons will not be taken. Bottom line, if enough Americans say, no, you're not taking my weapons, then a huge number of people in the military are going to be on their side anyway. A huge number of people in the military are going to be like me. I'd be like, I'm not taking guns from Americans. You gave me an order to take guns from Americans? That's unconstitutional. I'd be like, no. I'm disobeying an order, actually. But because you're put in this legal situation where I think that they could put you in prison, but I think it would actually be legally wrong to confiscate weapons from Americans. I'm not sure about that, but I would not do it unless they were committing. I mean, if they were looting, or whatever, and I was a soldier, I would certainly take their weapons. And if they didn't surrender their weapons, I would just shoot them. But that's if they were doing something like that. I would not take somebody's weapons who are just being peaceful or walking around with them. That would be wrong on every level. I would say at least half of my friends must be gun owners, if not a lot more. Ron is saying, what about the hantavirus? Already over 1,000 infected with Hanta in Wuhan. I'm tracking that. I haven't brought it up. Somebody brought it up earlier. I haven't brought it up because I don't think it's worth your time yet. If I bring it up, it means I think it's worth your time, but I am tracking it. I don't think it's worth your time, especially not in the context of this. But if at some point that I think it is, I will definitely bring it up on the same day. There's a lot of things I didn't bring up as a serious threat to us, like swine flu. It was a serious threat. I mean, it could have been actually, but it wasn't. But I mentioned it many times because it was damaging the Chinese economy. And of course, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I certainly listen to him. Georgine Madigan Stoner. Maddie is fine. Actually, I was just chatting with her not long before I went live. I didn't talk with her on the phone. I mean, I sent her let me see if she sent any other messages. Let me check here on a different screen. But I just sent a message and asked how she was, and she said she had just woken up and she still didn't have her test results back. Let me see if she's responded. That other screen's opening. But her symptoms seem to not be great still. No response from her. from Maddie in about the last, what time is it? Oh, it's been an hour and a half. She says, I'm okay, heavily asleep, because I just sent her a message and asked her if she's okay. I dropped off. I'm sorry. It's because I was looking away from the microphone, I think. Hello in Cincinnati. You're welcome, Ron. But I'll definitely tell you if I see some great threat. Before I bring something like that to your attention, yeah, Jane's right. It's nasty. But it doesn't seem like it's a threat to us at this time. But the moment that I think it's actually a serious threat, I will definitely bring it up. What more can Trump do at this point? Is this comment? I'm an American and have had enough. That's a cool. I like your handle there. I'm an American and I've had enough. That's a great handle. Well, lock down and stop putting out bullshit information that's false. You know, and a lot of people accept it. They're like, well, you know, he's just putting some blue sky out there so people will feel good. I've already said what I think of that. I think that's completely the wrong thing to do. It's setting people up for failure is what it's doing. I mean, I don't even know if that's why he's doing it. I don't know. I can't read his mind. People are trying to read his mind saying he's doing it because of X. And unless you're a mind reader, then you don't know what he's thinking. And I certainly don't. Softail 12 says, golden rule, whoever makes the gold makes the rules. Well, in America, we got guns. So there's a little play in that. There's not and keep that in mind. Ultimately, a lot of us have lost faith in the U.S. government's ability to handle this pandemic. They've fumbled it at every step of the way. They haven't stockpiled masks and many other things. They did not. There was every opportunity to slow it down getting to the United States. Since January, I have been saying crystal clear, stop all flights from China, stop all flights from countries that are allowing flights from China, stop all mainlander Chinese from coming into America unless they're already in America and have been here for a while and have no chance of having the virus. But we didn't do that. Then Trump did a half measure, not even a half measure. He did a 10% measure and called it a whole measure. Cut off flights from Hubei province, right? Right. That's like cutting off flights from California and saying, we cut off flights from America. No, you didn't. You cut off flights from California. And if somebody wants to come, they'll just drive on up to SeaTac in Washington State and fly out from there. Or they'll fly over to New York and fly out. It's like shutting down Hubei province meant really nothing on the scale of things at all. It was nothing. It was just, here, look, I did something. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything worthwhile. In fact, he gave everybody a false sense of security. And remember, at the time when he shut down the flights, I was immediately saying, good, now keep shutting down more flights because this is not going to work. That's like shutting one window in a whole giant apartment complex, thinking you're going to keep the virus out. It didn't work. Barbara says, so Trump blew it by cutting off flights too late and by giving people false hope. How else? Oh, yeah, that's two things. And one is just false hope and false information. Like, did you see that video I put of the fungus that gets into the ants? That's only one of the types of fungus that these fungi, some types of fungi will get into creatures and they hijack their brain, right? They'll like make an ant go up and get on the edge of a blade of grass where a cow eats it, and ultimately it goes to the cow, right? I mean, it's like the fungus is shooting towards the cow's brain. So it uses the ant to go up to the edge of a blade of grass, and the cow eats it and it kills the cow and does whatever the fungus wants to do. There's many fungi like that do different things to different creatures and just seize their brain. Now, I'm sort of semi-joking when I say that there are people that are acting, and I'm not fully joking, that there are people that are acting like they're the public affairs officers for this virus by either saying directly or insinuating or comparing it to the flu, right? It ain't the flu. There's nothing like the flu, except they're both viruses. It's not the flu at all. And he was clearly setting that expectation. Hours count when we're fighting something like this. Hours count, not months. Hours. If you wait a week, that's huge. That is huge. In the face of something like this that's traveling exponentially, when you look at Bill Gates as an example in his 2015 TED Talks, right? It's been a while, but I think it was 2015. And he talks about Ebola as an example. Now, Ebola, remember the Ebola scare? Well, Ebola wasn't airborne, right? Ebola wasn't airborne. And when you got Ebola, it knocked you down right then. So you get Ebola and boom. So by the time that you've got it and you're down, I mean, you're on the ground or you're in bed dying, right? And so you're not even shedding the disease. You're not even contagious in any serious way until you're on the ground, right? A worst case scenario for viruses like this is that they stay in you for a long period of time and you're asymptomatic and they're airborne, right? That sort of thing. So this perfect storm of things happens when asymptomatic spreaders are out there and it's airborne. Sound familiar? I mean, not just Bill Gates. He was warning about that clearly, but it goes way back beyond that. That's why I've been reading about it since I was a kid. That's why when I saw this happening, I lifted and shifted from the insurgency, which was all I was focusing on, was the Hong Kong insurgency to help overthrow the Chinese Communist Party. So you see how this all wraps in and how I ended up in the middle of all this? And then seeing what this virus was doing, I'm like, snap, this is potentially incredibly serious. And that's why I started saying it in January. He missed the boat. He hesitated in the face of an enemy that doubles in number maybe every 4 to 6 days. Literally, the viral army seems to double in number every 4 to 6 days. And then it doubles again and doubles again and doubles again. It's exponential. Wow. Goes like a rocket to space. So, I mean, now we're at the vertical ascent mode with Italy, Spain, Iran, China saying they got it under control. You believe that? Hong Kong's about to get hit. Thailand is right on the edge of it. I think they're going to declare emergency today. It's already an emergency. There's about 1,000 cases here or so right now. I think maybe more than 100 were detected yesterday, something like that. And other places are going to get hit with this very hard, all over the world. More than 150 countries now. It'll be all of them before it's over. And so, no, President Trump hesitated in the face of an enemy that you simply cannot afford to hesitate in front of. It's too late. In the future, people are going to look back at this. I mean, it's not too late for us to continue to mitigate. I mean, that's what it's down to now. You got President Trump, doing whatever he does. And then you got, Governor Cuomo up there saying, our fate is your fate. He just was saying that. That was his last talk, right? I think that, unless he's done another one since then. He was saying, look at us now. What is happening to us is about to happen to other people. And by that, he's referring to the rest of the entire country and world, right? That it hasn't happened to yet. Detroit looks like it's going to get smashed soon. Who else? Detroit, New Orleans, Chicago. I did an interview with Chicago yesterday, or maybe 12 hours ago, with a radio station there, the John Proft show. But or Dan Proft, I'm sorry. And I mean, it's going to spread all over America. You're going to get hit, whatever nook or cranny you're in, unless you stay holed up in your house and you don't leave and you are really honestly quarantined. And if you've got enough to weather it through. Now, are they going to, let's see, let's try to just answer questions. I think I've answered that enough. But, what he's done is he hesitated. He hesitated. You notice even after 9/11, I did not run off to war. I mean, even that did not get me totally focused on that war until 2004, when 2 of my friends were killed in Iraq. One was Scott Helvenston, that I used to work out with in high school. He was the youngest Navy SEAL ever. We were high school friends, and he got killed in Fallujah. And then within one day of that, one of my old Green Beret friends, we were teammates, Richard Ferguson, was killed, also in Iraq. And then I had other friends in Iraq. One was Rodney Morris. I also used to work out with Rodney. We all went to the same high school together. And then I went to Iraq. But keep in mind, I didn't go until December of 2004. And we invaded on March 23rd or something like that, 2003, right? So I didn't get excited and run off to the war. Two of my friends got killed. Then I thought we were losing the war, and there was a really serious insurgency going. So I went over there, and I did combat in that war. Like, you won't find somebody that did more combat in that war unless they're like a Delta Force guy or a SEAL or an infantryman or something like that. And there wouldn't be very many of those that did either. So I was getting it on. So when it comes to, when I bring up something like this seriously, it's because I know how serious it is, and you need to be prepared. And if you're listening to President Trump to take cues from him, you're gonna make strategic mistakes that could cost you your life. It is CCP's fault to a point. It's like, the person who starts the forest fire, ultimately it's like, hey, they started the forest fire. CCP clearly covered this up. Clearly. But we knew about it in December. Clearly. We absolutely knew about it in December. No question about it. And continued to let it go. And only in late January, after I was already talking about it publicly, let's see, I think Steve Bannon's first pandemic show was January 25th, right? And I was talking about it before that even, right? I mean, I was it was obvious. I mean, it was obvious that something was serious. There was clearly a forest fire going. There was clearly a viral fire going. It clearly was very serious. And then, from there, day after day went on, week after week. The army that's doubling in size every 4 to 6 days, it doubles, it spreads. Now it's got us outflanked. We no longer have it isolated in China. Still flights coming in. Oh, we cut them off from Hubei province. What the hell difference does that make? It's like cutting off California when you left the rest of all the United States open and the rest of the world. It made no difference whatsoever. It made no difference to cut off Hubei province. Not ultimately. Ultimately, it makes no difference. He hesitated. He hesitated in the face of the enemy. And now the enemy is coast to coast. It was going to get there sooner or later, but had we locked down sooner, we would have had a chance to go, hey, we don't have any masks because our government is incompetent. No problem. Everybody start making masks. We need respirators. We need respirators. Instead, now we got Governor Cuomo out scouting hospitals after they're already taking fatalities. He should have been scouting for hospitals in January. Governor, it should have been scouted out long in advance. That should have been scouted out in 1919. I mean, it's unbelievable that our government is completely unprepared. And Bill Gates just said in the last few days, you know how he is. He's a real calm guy. He's just like, well, too bad they didn't listen, or something like that. He said it in the Bill Gates sort of way, you know what I mean? And here we go. Somebody saying Gates is evil. He will be arrested before April. And I don't know why he would be arrested. And I don't know why people always tell me why he's so evil, but it never sticks with me enough that I can remember why. I understand that a lot of people don't like him and they didn't like that Apple guy, whatever his name was, Steve Jobs. And so that's just the way it goes. And I don't know what you mean, Barbara. I mean, why do you say that? I don't know what you're referring to. Court Graham is saying, once we're past the disease, what do you see as the proper manner in which to deal with the CCP for what they unleashed? First of all, I've been focused on their destruction for a long time. It's not been hidden, has it? You see these 3 books I wrote on Chinese information war? That one just came out 3 weeks ago, right? Unfortunately, they're only in Japanese language. That one came out 3 weeks. You can get it on Amazon JP in ebook or on, paperback. And it's funny. People send me articles on Chinese information war every day. I'm like, you have no idea how much of that I've studied. I can talk about. I could teach a university class on it. I mean, I totally get it, and that's why even back in January and February, I was saying, and they will blame this on the United States and Japan for sure. That's just as sure as tomorrow's sunrise, and now they are, of course. So there you go. Let's see here. There's a lot of questions, and I'm not like skipping any. I'm just like diving in. I'm like spearfishing a question. My eyes go to one, and that's the one I'm going to. I'm not. I can't read them all. They're coming too quickly. Leigh Lewis is asking, when was it that CCP wouldn't allow scientists in to monitor? Also, CCP didn't report the outbreak to the WHO, did they? Yeah, they did. They reported it to the World Health Organization. When did they do that? Was it December 13th? I don't remember, but they did. And then the World Health Organization, who's strongly in cahoots with the Chinese information war, just covered up for them and, did what the World Health Listen, Tedros, the guy that runs the World Health Organization, he's a Maoist. He's a straight up Maoist. You know what a Maoist, Maoism is what created this communism thing that we have in China today. He's one of their boys. He's a Xi boy. He's straight up the enemy. Tedros at the World Health Organization, he is our enemy. Straight up. Not an opponent. He's an enemy of the United States and free people everywhere. Oh, the Chinese information war is vast, Yoshi. It is vast. Chris Cram, Mike, if over the next 2 weeks there is not a significant, not even exponential, but just significant increase in the number of, you say COVID-19, I'll just call it Xi's disease, patients in the hospitals across the country, there will need to be a reconsideration of our current course of action. Chris, I don't see a high possibility that there won't be an increase in the dramatic increase in cases. I don't even see that as a remote possibility. Everything's possible in the universe. That's one of those that's really close to not being reasonable. The argument that the real exponential growth will not occur until week X, it's in exponential growth, may not be accurate. The population density of the United States is far less than New York City. Oh, there's cities all over the United States with high population. Detroit. How many cities do we have with high population density? It's going to spread. It's going to spread. We didn't. One of the things that we could have done a huge thing that we could have done to mitigate our problems would be, when we realized we didn't have test kits, first of all, shut down all incoming cases. We could have done that at a lot less damage to our economy, a lot less. If we would have shut down all incoming travel until people have been quarantined, then we wouldn't be facing what we're facing now. And we would have had time to do another strategy, which would have been develop the test kits very quick. Look at how many other people have been, and then literally test everybody that looks symptomatic or even remotely, and then do contact tracing and also test everybody that comes in. We had that ability. We've blown it. It's too late. That fire is gone. And by the way, back to the fire analogy, yeah, CCP, Mike Morgan, CCP did let this get out of let the match get struck and get the forest on fire. But then Trump watched, and not just Trump, European countries did it too, but not Hong Kong. Well, the Hong Kong government did, but the Hong Kong people didn't, because they still remember SARS. Taiwan didn't. Taiwan jumped right on this, man. Taiwan monkey stomped this thing. Doesn't mean Taiwan's not going to get hit, but Taiwan jumped right on it. They started doing testing, contact tracing. They jumped on it like crazy. And I thought Taiwan was going to get smashed, but it didn't, because their government and their people collectively really have done remarkable work, and Korea's done quite well as well. But not Thailand, not the United States. I'm in Thailand. We're about to get smashed. And so, no. So, yeah, China clearly let the fire get started and rolling, but we had a lot of time to react to it. We could have shut everything down, start making masks. Where's our mask? Start making enough PPE for everybody. Start making respirators. We could have started making everything else that the doctors tell us that they need. We could have, the test kits so that CDC and medical people around the country could test everybody they want to test. We could have shut it down. We could have shut this bad boy down so that the effect on the United States was absolutely minimal. But we didn't. I mean, we could have shut it down to the point where it would just be, oh, there's just a case over there now. Oh, there's another case over here, but they're in the hospital now. They're good to go. So it could have been that way. But we blew it. And now I'm going to tell you who blew it. President Trump blew it. It doesn't mean that Dementia Joe or whatever's going wrong with his brain would have done any better. He'd probably think that it was the flu and he's running for Senate or something. Or the communist Bernie Sanders. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that by saying that Trump blew it, that they would have done any better. I mean, look at the European countries uniformly have done terrible with this. And so there you go. I think it was a case of collective stupidity. But in the face of people like Bill Gates, who some people hate for whatever reasons that are still kind of unclear to me, and there you go. And it's going to ravage our economy. There's no way out of it. And it's going to kill a huge number of Americans. There's no way out of it. I don't know what that number is going to be. And eventually we will survive it, as we do all the time with other terrible things. And we will move on, and there will be history books written about how incredibly incompetently this was handled. And there'll be movies and videotapes of people making statements like, expect the Easter or this thing will be getting better and all that sort of stuff. And it will not. Kim is saying Gates is being accused via the online rumor mill. I like the way you capitalize rumor. Exactly. A rumor of funding virus research at Wuhan. Yada, yada, yada. All accusations about the vaccine patent. It's unclear and unverified. It's just crazy talk. And unless somebody's got real evidence, they should just shut their mouth because they sound ridiculous. I mean, it just sounds ridiculous. Unless you've got evidence, you really sound crazy when you keep just throwing stuff out like, this, that, or the other. Yeah, notice in the United States, we had a government, including our Surgeon General, of all people in the world, who shattered his credibility by telling Americans not to wear a mask. Absolutely shattered it. Shattered it, irrevocably shattered it. He might as well have taken a mirror and shattered it piece by piece with a ball-peen hammer. That thing will never be put back together again. And if he does, it'll look like stained glass. Surgeon General and all the rest. Not all the rest. There's been some that have been more straight up about it. But certainly others have not. You and Kip Moon. Robert, you can check Michael's earlier live streams. He was calling for flights to stop weeks ago. I was calling for that like in January. I think you'll find that in the Jordan Harbinger interview that I did, which aired in February, but I think we taped that on January 29th. I think that you'll find that in that actual interview there, but I was saying it before. Remember, I published today that Facebook thing I put up on January 22nd about the coronavirus on the Long March, right? That's on my Facebook. You can find it. And that was on the 22nd of January. And Trump didn't do his super ultra limited travel ban, or you want to call it that. It's more like a travel inconvenience until about a week after I said that. Yeah, more than a week. So anyway, whatever. It's too late. It's too late. I mean, we've lost the initiative. The initiative belongs to the virus. We're totally defensive at this point. Absolutely down to mitigation. We're down to save the cats, kittens, and pictures at this point. And we will. And we'll take a huge number of casualties, and our economy will be destroyed. Whereas it could have just been damaged, badly damaged. It would have been damaged anyway. That was clear. But our casualties could have been minuscule. Our casualties, we could have been out on. Remember the things that I was saying back then in early February. You can find them on my live streams. I was saying things like, this will put us into a position to take out CCP, right? This will put us in, because their economy is crushed and they've created a lot of problems in between. But instead, what did our president and others do? They let it walk right in the front door. Let it walk right in. Just like, here's a red carpet, Mr. Virus. Do what you will. And so there you go. It was almost like he left a glass of warm milk for the Santa Claus virus. Let's see. Massimo Max Mura. I think the governments are telling many stories to turn us against everyone. Certainly China does that. Robert Williams. I agree, but huge bureaucracies move slow. Trump, for all his faults, has done it quite a bit to cut through the red tape. No, he could have shut the flights instantly. He could have instantly shut the flights down. He could have instantly closed the borders. He could have absolutely done that. There was nothing stopping him from doing that. And so he blew it. He let the virus walk right in. He hesitated in the face of the virus. And now he's essentially powerless in the face of the virus. Now he's down to, how am I going to spin this bad boy as it ravages my country and my economy and financial institutions and chances of being reelected? And then what are we faced with? We're faced with Joe Biden. That guy's got some kind of mental issue going on. Or that communist guy, Bernie Sanders. Does he even have any chance at all? I guess Joe Biden could keel over. Somebody's got a chance. I mean, somebody's going to get elected. I can tell you one thing. There's going to be a lot of people angry come November when so many of their family members are dead. There's going to be a lot of people that voted for Trump. Remember, the only reason Trump won the first time was because Hillary sucks. She was horrific. That's why Trump won. He won because everybody that the Democrats put up is like that. You know what I mean? You're like, they had no alternatives. And so that's why he got elected. Now, I like the way he handled China, a lot of things, although I'm a lot more hawkish on China than Trump was. But he was more hawkish than any other president since forever, really. And so Evelyn says, and one in Arizona dead from using fishing tank cleaner. Yeah, that's, can't fix that. That's not Trump's fault. I know people are trying to blame that on Trump, but that's not Trump's fault. I've seen people trying to blame that on Trump, but that's the people that did the fishing tank cleaner thing. I think you have to stretch to blame that on Trump. You have to blame that on stupidity. If the story is accurate as reported. Excuse me. Michael Waller. How did 4 million Taiwanese flee China during the outbreak? 4 million or 400,000? I don't see it. Oh, it's 400,000, you're saying. Have extremely low cases. Is this biological warfare? I mean, it could be biological warfare, but is it? Do we have proof? Do we have evidence? I mean, it could be. But remember, if you're a veterinarian or you know somebody who is a veterinarian, ask them or ask yourself if you're a veterinarian. When you went to veterinarian school, were you warned that the animal markets especially in China, actually, are a threat to basically the world because they are breeding grounds for diseases like this? experts have known this and been saying it for years. I've known stuff like this for years, and I'm not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a biological warfare expert, but I knew this stuff just from, being, trying to be aware of the major threats to our country and our world. I was aware of it. That's why I jumped right on it in January. I didn't jump on this flat-footed. I mean, to jump on it at the front edge like I did, you already had to have a lot in your head. I'm not a virologist or an epidemiologist, but I was armed with a sufficient amount of knowledge to realize that we got an enemy in the wire. And if we don't do something right now, that enemy will be inside the wire in the command post. And he is. That's right. Hey, Iris. And that's right. But then we let it in. Yeah, like Alexa says, Trump is overstepping and he's talking too much because we don't have tests. And by the way, I'm not even feeding this out to these other feeds that I used to feed it out to just a couple days ago, because every time I say even the slightest thing that Trump delayed or whatever, they freak out and they start making threats and stuff. I was like, you know what? Have a nice day. If you can't handle it, then you'll have to come over to my site if you want to see the information for free, because I'm not going to be, because one of the or several of the pages that I was live streaming to, the owners are friends with the Trumps. So I'm just like, listen, I'm not your dog. I'm not your man. I am an American first, and I have no loyalty to President Trump or any president. I have loyalty to the United States, to my family and friends, and humanity, but not to any particular president. No matter who comes next, either it won't be this. You know who I'm starting to think would be a good president, though, would be one of my senators, Marco Rubio. He might be a good president. I've been thinking about that a lot. Some people don't like him, but I see good judgment in Marco Rubio, and he hates China. I'm not saying he hates China, but he's very, he's a super hawk on China, which to me, the China CCP was the biggest threat to the United States, clearly, until this virus came, and now it's this virus and then CCP, right? We must face China, not China as the Chinese people, but as the Chinese Communist Party. We got to take them out, and that means we gotta meet them head up and really do whatever we have to do to destabilize CCP and get rid of them. But now we're going to go through a very dark period, and we're going to have to get through it, and we will get through it. Let's see. Hey, Jay Mitchell, I'm trying to see any. I see a lot of statements, but I'm not seeing any questions for me, so I'll just. Robert Williams, we can disagree without being disagreeable.